The snow came before the silence. It swept through the high timber like a white ghost, swallowing sound, shape, and scent. Trees groaned beneath the weight of it, and a red fox turned back toward its den, its tracks already erased. But one figure did not turn back. Elijah Rook dragged the cedar tree through the snow, breath steaming, muscles trembling under the weight of 100 winters. His boots cracked through a thin crust of ice as the sled scraped behind him. The rope burned against his shoulder, but he did not complain because there was no one to hear him if he did. He stopped at the top of a ridge. Down below, his cabin, crouched like a wounded bear in the clearing timbers darkened by weather, chimney spitting weak smoke. Beyond it, just endless forest and white sky, no trails, no other cabins. No voices for weeks. Elijah looked up. Somewhere behind the gray curtain of sky, the sun still existed. He remembered the way it used to fall across a young girl's face, freckles dancing, mouth full of stories. He'd built this cabin for her. For them, but the fever came last winter. Took her before the thaw. Her name had been Mary, his daughter. He bent and resumed pulling. The snow groaned under his weight, and the trees whispered things that made no sense. By the time he reached the cabin, the light was failing. He dropped the rope, let the sled lie crooked in the snow. Inside he lit. The lantern stirred the ashes in the stove, set a pan of water to boil. The room smelled of pine pitch and memory. On the wall, her shawl still hung, untouched, the way she'd left it. Elijah didn't drink, didn't pray. He just sat by the fire with his hands open on his knees and listened to the wind. That's when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong to wind or fox or falling snow. He stood slowly. Stepped out onto the porch. Nothing moved, but there, half buried near the steps, were footprints. No shoes. Toes splayed in the frost, dragging behind them. A trail, like something half-crawled. He knelt, touched the print. Still warm at the center. Someone was out there. He lifted his rifle off the doorframe. By morning, the storm had grown teeth. Winds screamed through the forest, pushing snow in waves. Elijah split wood until the axe blistered his palm, then stopped to listen again. That was when the noise came again louder, a thud, a crack. A body, falling. He yanked open the door. A shape lay twisted on the edge of the porch, small, bare. Legs blue with cold. Braids frozen with snow. She hadn't knocked, hadn't spoken. Just collapsed there like a ghost surrendering. He crouched beside her, unsure. Her eyes fluttered. Lakota. Maybe 17, maybe 20. No more than 90 pounds, and paralyzed. He saw it then, how her legs didn't bend. How she'd dragged herself here through a half-mile of snow, arms trembling from the effort, her lower body dead weight. Her dress torn at the hips. One foot twisted under the other. Elijah stood. Looked out at the snow-choked trees. No signs of horses. No shouts. No torchlight. Just her. He should have left her there, but he didn't. He laid her near the stove. Slowly, carefully, he unwrapped the blanket around her waist. Her skin was frostbitten at the toes. Her left ankle bone showed pale and raw. Through torn skin, she didn't flinch. Didn't speak. He lit a second fire in the corner hearth. Melted snow in a pot? Dipped cloth in the warmth and began wiping the blood away from her feet. She watched him. Her eyes were not pleading. They were not afraid. They were waiting, like she knew this moment had already happened in a dream once, long ago. By the third day, she still hadn't said a word. Elijah moved her from bed to hearth and back again, using a sled he built from pine slats and old rope. She helped, silently reaching for the edge of the table, pulling her own weight when she could. Her arms were strong, even if the rest of her had been broken. He wrapped her legs with oiled cloth, rubbed her calves each night. Not like a man desiring, but like a man bearing a daughter again and trying to will life back into what was frozen. Once, while stirring soup, he caught her watching the photograph on the wall, his daughter and his wife back when. They all lived in Illinois before the war. He said nothing. She didn't ask, but later that night, when he returned from the woods, he saw her holding a pouch she wore on a string around her neck. She had pulled something from it, a beaded strip of cloth. Red and blue, stitched with eagle feathers. Elijah stopped. His late wife had made the same pattern once, back when she traded with a Lakota woman in the Kansas Territory. A coincidence? Or something worse? That night. He couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling and listened to her breath. Each exhale felt like it was brushing the dust off something long buried inside him. The storm finally broke on the seventh day. Light poured into the clearing like a benediction. Snow dripped from branches like tears. Elijah stepped outside, eyes narrowed against the brightness. Bird called, the world didn't answer. Then he saw them. Far at the tree line, 3 horses. Dark coats. Men hunched against the wind, too far to make out details. But one lifted something in his hand. A long gun. Elijah stepped backward, slowly. He didn't run. He didn't wave. He went inside and locked the door. The woman still, nameless, watched him. He sat across from her, laid his rifle on the table, reached into the drawer beneath it, pulled out something he hadn't touched in years. A folded piece of paper, yellowed with time. He slid it across to her. She unfolded it. A bounty notice. Faded, but still legible. Wanted, lame woman, native. Gift of healing, for questioning and death of child. Reward, $150. Alive. Her hands trembled, but her face stayed stone. He asked the question with his eyes. She looked away. That was all the answer he needed. Elijah stood. Tossed the paper into the fire. The flames swallowed it without hesitation. For the first time in weeks, she spoke a single word. Why? He didn't answer. He just placed his axe beside the door. The world was coming, and this time, he wasn't going to hide from it. The trees no longer whispered. They listened. Elijah stood at the edge of the tree line the next morning, boots buried in slush, his fingers tightening around the haft of his axe. The wind no longer screamed. It waited. The cabin behind him puffed. Smoke like a dying animal, fragile against the weight of coming steps. They hadn't returned yet. The riders, but they would. He'd seen their kind before. Hard-faced men with hollow hearts, chasing blood or coin. The kind that believed any woman who healed was a witch, and any native that breathed was a threat. They'd come for her, and for him now. Inside, the girl moved soundlessly. She dragged herself across the floor with a kind of quiet dignity, never asking for help, never flinching at the pain. Her hands were worn raw from crawling across rough boards, and Elijah noticed how she'd begun gripping things differently, palms flat, shoulders tighter. She was adapting, surviving. He found himself watching her too long, not with hunger, with awe. Once, he caught her beside the hearth, using a stick of charcoal to draw something on a plank of birch. Not words, just shapes. An eagle with one wing curled, a pair of boots beside a small fire. A tree split down the middle. He didn't ask. She didn't explain. Their language had become something deeper than speech, carved in glances, in shared silence, in small acts of care. When he brought her a blanket, she smoothed the edges with reverence. When he burned his hand splitting kindling, she crushed a bitter root and wrapped his wrist with it. He never told her that his daughter once did the same. That same afternoon, Elijah cleared the cellar. Pulled up 2 old crates of powder and nails, set traps around the property his own design, hidden snares in the brush, tension wires beneath the snow, a log above the door, balanced just right. Not enough to kill, but enough to warn. He sharpened the axe until it sang. She watched him from the porch, wrapped in elk fur, her legs useless, folded beneath her like a broken prayer. But her eyes were lit now, not with fear but with defiance. The sky turned ash-gray. It would not snow again, but something colder was coming, that night. Elijah dreamed of the war. Not the guns. Not the death, the sound of breathing, Thousands of lungs gasping in unison like one beast trying to die. Asterisk, he woke with his chest tight, sweat frozen on his back. The woman was at the window. Her breath fogged the glass. Asterisk, she turned. To him, then back to the trees. He moved beside her. They're just beyond the last ridge. 3 orange sparks, campfires, they were closer now. She touched the glass, then, with 2 fingers, drew a symbol in the mist. A circle, then, inside it, a single flame. He didn't know what it meant, but he remembered it. By morning, the traps had been sprung. Asterisk, one of them was left behind his leg, caught, bones crushed, screaming into the branches. The other 2 had dragged him away, leaving blood across the snow. Elijah watched from the rise. They weren't bounty men anymore, they were wolves now. He returned to the cabin. Asterisk pushed the table against the door. Gave her the rifle. Asterisk, she stared at it, then up at him. Asterisk, I can't. Asterisk, her voice was soft, almost broken. He placed it in her hands anyway. You don't have to aim, he said, just make noise. Asterisk, she nodded once. Eyes hard, Elijah stepped out into the light. The woods swallowed him. The snow was thinner now, crusted with ice, crunching under every step. He moved fast, circling back. He'd tracked men before. Killed them too when they tried to steal. His land, his lumber, his girl, but this was different. This wasn't revenge. This was protection. He found their camp mid-afternoon. 2 tents, 1 fire. Blood-streaked rags hanging from a line. Asterisk, one man stood pissing into a bush, singing to himself. Elijah didn't wait. The axe flew silent. The man crumpled. The second turned too late. Asterisk. They fought in the slush fist to face. Boot to ribs? The man was bigger, younger, meaner, but Elijah didn't fight like a man. He fought like a storm. Asterisk. The younger man screamed when the hatchet hit his thigh. Went down swinging. Caught Elijah across the jaw. Teeth cracked. Blood filled his mouth. He didn't stop. The forest fell silent. Both men lay still, one breathing. One not. Elijah staggered. His side screamed. His shoulder was dislocated. His ribs were cracked. But his legs still worked. That was enough. He limped back toward the cabin, back to her. Asterisk. He didn't remember collapsing on the steps. Just her hands pulling at his coat. Just the way she cried without sound. Her mouth open but no noise coming out. She dragged him inside. Packed snow against his wounds. Asterisk, when he woke. It was night. Asterisk, she sat beside him, clutching the rifle like it might bite her. The fire was low, but she was upright, braced against the chair, her hands gripping the edge. Her legs, one of them moved, slight. A twitch, but real. He blinked. She noticed. Asterisk. I feel it, she whispered. For the first time? He didn't speak. He reached out, touched her hand. They sat that way for a long time, her hand over his, the storm outside forgotten. Only their breath remained. Later, as the fire died, she crawled to the door. Elijah moved to stop her, but she lifted her hand. Wait. She dragged herself onto the porch. Snow crunched under her weight. Asterisk, then she pulled herself up to one knee. Then, shaking, she reached for the edge of the doorway. Asterisk, Elijah rose. Heart hammering, she stood, wobbling, broken, barefoot. Asterisk, but she stood, just for a second, then collapsed into his arms. Her voice was barely a whisper. Tomorrow, she said, I will stand again. He held her like the wind would take her, and this time it didn't feel like holding a ghost. Asterisk, it felt like holding the start of something true. Asterisk. The first birdsong returned at dawn. Asterisk, thin, hesitant-like. Even the sparrows weren't sure if it was safe to sing again. Asterisk, Elijah sat on the steps of the cabin, face bruised, one hand wrapped in cloth. The axe lay across his lap like a faithful dog. The sun cracked through the tree line, melting frost in silver rivulets across the clearing. Asterisk, inside, she stirred. Asterisk, he could hear her moving slow, dragging, but different now, determined, like her body had remembered some old truth. Asterisk, yesterday she'd stood for 2 seconds. Today she would try again. He closed his eyes. Listened to the world waking. No riders, no fire, no screams. Just the quiet hush of survival. But the quiet never lasted long. A sound soft, off rhythm came from beyond the ridge, a broken horse's breath. Then another, *. Elijah stood, the axe sliding from his knees. His ribs howled, but he didn't flinch. He crossed the clearing to the edge of the woods, boots silent in the thawing mud. * There 2 figures on horseback, one limped. The other held something across his lap, a rifle, the one who'd escaped, *. And he wasn't alone this time. Elijah turned, sprinted to the cabin, inside. She was gripping the edge of the table, one leg planted, the other dragging behind. She looked up. Saw his face. She didn't ask. She reached for the rifle, *. No, Elijah said. She froze. You go to the crawl space. Take the root cellar. Stay down. What about? I don't run. *. Her eyes burned with fear and fire. Her mouth opened to protest, but he was already moving, *. Already outside, already waiting. They rode in slow, confident. *. The lead rider had a gray beard and one blind eye. He stopped 20 feet from the porch. *. Name's Cutter, he said. Loud enough to carry, and I came for what's mine. Elijah said nothing. Cutter spat. She's a freak. A witch. Took my boy with her lies and charms. He died choking on his own tongue. You know what that makes her? A murderer. *. She healed him, Elijah said. And your boy wasn't strong enough to hold what she gave him, *. Cutter laughed. It sounded like gravel and hate. *. Give her up, he said, or we burn you out. * Elijah stepped off the porch, axe in one hand, the sun behind him. *. No, he said. But you can try. The fight wasn't fair. It never was. Cutter fired first. Missed. *. Elijah lunged through the axe. It struck the horse's bridle. The animal screamed, reared. Cutter fell, slammed into the earth, gun spinning. *. The second man leapt down, a long blade in hand. Elijah met him with bare fists. They crashed into the snow. Steel flashed, blood arced. Elijah roared as the blade slashed his shoulder. He grabbed a fistful of the man's coat and headbutted him once, twice until his face collapsed in *. The rider dropped. Cutter rose, gun in hand. Elijah turned, too slow. The barrel lifted. Then, boom, a crack like thunder split the air. * Cutter jerked, looked down. His chest bloomed red. Smoke curled from the cabin doorway. She stood there, legs trembling. Hands locked around the rifle. Her eyes didn't waver. Cutter staggered, fell to one knee. * You! He rasped. * She stepped forward, one step. Then another, then she collapsed. But Elijah was already there, catching her, holding her. * Cutter choked on blood. Collapsed into the mud. The world went silent again. Only their breath remained. Elijah buried the bodies beneath the ridge. * He marked them with no stones. The horses he let go. The axe he cleaned. The blood he did not. Spring melted the rest. * Day by day. She healed, not fully, not perfectly, but enough. He built her a cane from mountain ash. She carved her name into it. Ayoka, * it meant. She brought happiness. He did not ask if it was her real name. It was now. * One evening, she stood beside him at the chopping stump. He showed her how to split kindling with one arm, how to brace the wood so it wouldn't jump. * She laughed when she missed. He smiled when she didn't. No wedding. No promises. Just breath, firelight, the echo of what could be. One night, she pulled the beaded ribbon from her pouch, held it out. I made this when I was 8, she said. For who? * For a man I hadn't met yet. Elijah took it, wrapped it around his wrist. * The sky broke open above them, stars like scars across the night. * And for the first time in years, Elijah didn't think of war or fire or death. He thought of tomorrow. Some wounds never close. Some ghosts never leave. * But sometimes, if the fire is kept warm enough and the silence honored just right. * A broken man and a broken woman can find peace in the same room, even if they never say the word home. *